Hey, Peter and Ben. I was breaking down this video of the three of us, and I started noticing some really good things that I think will really help you, Ben, and you, Peter. Originally, I was just making this video for Peter, but Ben, I noticed a couple things I think were good to take note of, so I figured I'd just include you into this analysis. So, Peter's having issues with feeling stiff and having the core super connected, and that's making it so he's having a hard time throwing over to his tail and getting that full range of motion. So we're just going to go and break down the in run and what's going on here, and we'll go from there. So the thing I want you to really point out about your in run and wind up, Peter, is it's definitely good enough. You're in a position that's pretty similar to mine. Like we're not as tall as Ben here, but it's okay to be this amount leaned over. The big thing that I'll note is as we go and transfer, we can see that your upper body is now further away from your snowboard. And this is happening for two reasons. The first reason is as you're coming in on your heel edge, you're holding a very straight angle towards the jump. So see here how my board's completely angled towards the side and Ben's angle's almost completely straight. So there's three different things going on here. Uh, Ben is holding a straight angle, so that means when he transitions to his toe edge, he doesn't need a very dramatic angle of change. This is really good because it doesn't have much shifting from heel edge to toe edge. The harder part is it's a little smaller motions are more precise, so they're sometimes less consistent, and it can be harder to go and really get that toe edge dug in. Like here, we can see as he gets onto his toe edge, Ben, you get a little bit of slide here transferring over. You do a really good job of staying tall and opened up so it doesn't affect you, but that's generally why a little bit more edge pressure helps. It just makes sure that you don't have any of that extra sideways momentum. So what I'm doing here is getting on my heel edge super early, getting that angle super early, and then flattening it out, allowing me to go and match the angle the whole way. And as my board straightens out, it naturally comes right underneath me, getting me in this tall stance. For you though, Peter, because you're coming in with a straight angle and then you're adding the angle last second, it's creating a lot of sideways momentum. And this sideways momentum is making it so your upper body is now too far away from your snowboard. It's a doable length away, but it's going to make it a little bit harder. The taller you can be over your board, the better. Ben does this absolutely fantastically, uh, but it doesn't need to be that level. And then the next thing that I noticed is your wind up. So you're hitting the wind up nice and early, but look at how long you hold your wound up before you start snapping. And this is where I want to actually talk to you as well, Ben, but let me just finish this. So you're holding your maximum wound up position for, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Sort of 9 frames you're starting to throw it. Let's look at mine. I'm coming in, max windup, 1, 2, and I'm immediately throwing. So I'm like almost not holding the max windup at all. Maybe here, 1, 2, maybe 2, 3, 4 frames, but half the time is your to not a quarter. And let's watch Ben here. Coming up, winding up, winding up, winding up. Here we are, max out position. 1, 2, 3, and you can see he's immediately throwing. So we're not going and throwing our from our wound up position immediately because we're trying to get like kinetic energy going. We're doing it because the fully wound up position is actually a compromised state. See how it bends here so twisted? That's going to make it so his weight's shifting to his toe edge. I'm also in a similar position. So your wound up position is also shifting your weight to your toe edge. And because you're holding it so long, it's increasing the amount of weight that's being put on your toe edge. And that's another reason why we're getting this big lean. So that's going to be something you really want to go and work on is you don't want to be holding this position. Let's go and see the transition. So heel edge, flat base, toe edge. Here's another thing I'm noticing. You're not winding up as you're like getting to your toe edge quite as early. So see here, your heel edge, flat base, then winding up, where me and Ben are using flat base. Let's see, wait, heel edge. See how I'm going and winding up, and my wind up's actually leading me into my toe edge. So I don't have that as a separate motion. The wind up is the shifting to the toe edge, and that's sort of what we want here. And when we're also winding up here, we're not going and like doing a super drastic position. Ben goes and rotates his upper body a little bit extra, gets his chest in front of him, but It's mostly coming from taking your hands towards your hips. I do it really noticeable here. And then just pushing out and extending into it into your toe edge position. So I'm not actually doing a dramatic wind up position. Instead, I'm just extending and elongating my body, putting my upper body into that position to then snap the spin. And because you're going and really delaying the snap, you're getting in this takeoff position here. See how your head's spotting towards your front hand here? It should be spotting all the way towards your tail. And because of this, you're really concaving over the front foot. You're not getting that full range of motion. We know it's coming from the two tight of core. We'll talk about that in a sec. So Ben, this is where I was noticing for your riding, as you're snapping your spin, you do a really good job, really nice and patient, and you get this really fantastic snap off the tail. But I was noticing that as you come in and do your spin, you're getting yourself really concaved and leading. We were doing this because your problem was grabbing too soon, so we're trying to exaggerate this. But when you go and pull your upper body this much, it makes it so your spine's twisted and you're not too connected. If we look at both of ours at the same point, you can see that I'm already in like a strong connected core position that I'll be able to pull into. You get a great snap and pull through so it doesn't slow down your rotational energy. But I'm worried moving on to like tens and nines that well, it's something that we want to go and fix because we don't want this much concaving of the upper body. It's going to just going to put us into a bit of a weaker position. So I think it's happening because you're just a little bit delayed on your snap. So see here, I'm already snapping my spin by the time you're getting into your max up wound up position. Snapping your spin, this makes it so you need to snap your spin faster. What's okay? Faster snap, more power, but it's making it so as you're coming off, you're leaving the jump and your upper body isn't quite rotated towards the tail. So look at how hyper exaggerated my takeoff is in this position versus your takeoff is here. My one's a little bit too much, and we can see that it's sort of set towards the front foot and it's putting me on this weird axis. But I think that you're going to have way more success with your back sevens if at this stage in the jump, your upper body is right over here, already starting to go and pull through. Because if your upper body is already pulling through off the takeoff, that should make it so everything connects and tightens a little bit more, allowing you to go and pull in sooner. And then the next thing that I want to talk about here is leg bend off the takeoff. So first, let's look at your legs here, Ben. So as you're snapping, you're going and extending your legs a little bit and you're getting into a straight position. This is actually what's causing you to get this little bit of edge pressure and you're getting not a full extension, but I think a little more extension than you need. If we go and look at my legs here, it's sort of hard to see, but I'm only extending as I come and snap off the lip and my board comes off, I already have a little bit of bend in my legs. See how your leg is coming, pushing through and extending off the lip? I think this is really slowing down your lower body from getting connected to your upper body. What's making it so as you try to connect everything together, you're just getting a little disconnected in that upper body and you need to lead it. Where here, because I have a bit of bend in my leg still, I'm able to go and keep that separation with torso, and that makes it so I can keep pulling and leading with the hips. Because if we look at your hips here, even though your upper body is fully rotated, your hips aren't completely down with it, where my hips at this stage are already pulling into the spin, leading. If we look at yours, your hip is now coming and leading at this stage. So your upper body is leading the rotation super duper well, but your lower body isn't quite catching up. And this is all coming from that snapping a little bit too late, making it so your upper body is here, your hips are still straight, where if you snapped a little bit sooner, had your upper body in more twisted position, you'd be able to let your hips fall sooner, and I think that'd let you keep more connected. Now, coming back to yours, Peter, as you're snapping, you're holding this wound up position a really long time, so you're actually starting to snap at the same time as Ben is, but not on that straight platform that's going to let you really shift. You're doing a much more bent down platform than me, like I do for the back seven, what's completely okay. A lot of good riders do it this way. Uh, this means, though, you need to rely on finishing and getting the full range of snap in order to get straight. See how I'm leaving the takeoff pretty much exactly the same position as Ben here, just maybe even more over top of my snowboard, even though I started more bent up. That's because I'm using that full range of motion of snap. I'm coming in, wound up, bent down, and as I go and throw the spin, I'm shifting to my back leg, extending through the body, getting more tall over my board. But because you're going and holding this position, you don't have enough time to get that full range of motion, and then you're trying to connect the core and throw everything all at once, and that's keeping you connected, and that's making it hard to go through. So your back arm's doing a really good a job leading here. Your chest is doing a good job, but you just don't have that power because you're missing like a whole 180 degrees off the snap. So recap, Ben, uh, going into this trip, I do think a little bit more heel to toe pressure wouldn't be the worst thing for you just because we're seeing this little bit of scuff right here. See how you're like having trouble going and getting from like flat base to toe edge? It's one of those things, if it isn't an issue, it's a really powerful takeoff, but we do see a lot of the pros using a little bit more edge pressure. So there might be a good reason for it. I also think that this might be a little more wind up than you need. The more wind up you have, the more it's going to be like dramatic to throw. So I think you'd be okay without going and doing that little extra bit of wind up. But the biggest thing is I just want to see the snap a little bit sooner because a bit of a sooner snap will let you get more rotation, get more over the tail, let the hips rotate, and that's going to really help. So another thing that'll help with that is making sure to not extend the legs. Uh, you do a pretty good job with it, but like we said, you're going and pushing your legs, extending. Like, look at how they're staying extended for a period of time off a lip here instead of immediately snapping up and rotating through. That's just going to limit your power because it's going and adding that disconnect between your upper and lower body. So a bit more bend of the legs, a bit earlier of a snap will make it all more connected. Peter, I want you to go and visualize getting into a more exaggerated heel edge position first to get that angle, or we can do the mellowing out, whichever one feels better. I find it a little easier and more comfortable to do the dramatic heel edge turn than the more mellow one because I'm trying to get my whole body into this position right here preemptively. Because my body being in a position here, look at my shoulders, look at my hips all rotated. So now all I need to do is stand up, really limiting the motions. Where Ben here, because you're straighter, you need to do a lot more of this wind up manually. So that's why we're seeing like so much of the arms and stuff wind up because your board and everything isn't angled this way. Not something I'm worried about for you, Ben, but definitely something that we'll go and consider if we run into any hiccups. So you can choose between the two philosophies, Peter. And then the biggest thing is uh, let's go and make it so your wind up, you start shifting to your toe edge as you wind up. Here you're going and like going flat base and then trying to do it. Let's try and connect that all into one motion. That'll get you fully wound up sooner. And then besides that, all you need to do is start snapping sooner. And it's going to be a lot easier to start snapping sooner when you don't feel like your board's continuing to travel this way. Picture it this way. If you still feel your board turning and traveling this way, you're not going to want to snap because you're going to have to do like a weird calculation of like, I got to snap my upper body here, try and keep it connected over to my tail. So we really want to remove that little bit of extra sideways drift. But end of the day, you need to start snapping much sooner with a much looser core and trying to shift it way more to that back foot without worrying about extending your legs. The extension of the legs will come, but it's really just that shifting to the back foot. You do a good job of keeping your legs bent, but because it's so caved in over the front foot, it's just sort of not recoverable from. So a much sooner snap, because one of the things I was talking about was like maybe your windup wasn't early enough. And I do think that's true. I think you can go and get your windup a little bit sooner by connecting it with your edge change and remembering that windup's just extending out of our position. And then we want to go and make sure that your board is feeling in control sooner, so that way you can start snapping the spin. If you look at mine, you can see that I actually start snapping the spin, and as I start snapping the spin, that straightens my board out. So it's one of those things that's going to take a little bit of time and finesse. But from looking at all of these, Ben, still a killer form. That's going to be awesome to work on. We'll go and get that power unlocked. And once we do that, it should feel a lot easier to get this around, a lot more comfortable. You'll be coming to your feet more consistent. And then Peter, let's go and make sure that we're keeping working on that upper and lower body disconnection, getting over to that back tail, and just not focusing on popping, but just leaving, throwing the whole body over that tail. Because looking at mine, you can tell a little bit of front foot, a little bit of over snap isn't a big deal. What's important is just making sure you get that upper body set in a rotation. And if you can have your hips fall along right away, it's going to really help with consistency and power in the long run. So nice work, boys. I'm looking forward to seeing your trip, Ben. And if either of you guys have any questions, just let me know.